You're standing on a job site, looking at a half-finished floor, wondering if you should splurge on a high-end rotary laser or just keep using that cheap line level you borrowed from a coworker. The fear of dumping money on a tool that doesn't actually speed you up is real, especially when you've got tight deadlines and a budget that can't afford a misstep. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's dig into whether the Leica Geosystems Rugby 620 lives up to the hype, or if it's another case of big name, big price, small payoff. First off, the Rugby 620 sits in the rotary laser family that's built for professionals who need a single-axis reference that can level itself without a lot of fiddling. In the field, that means you can set it up, hit the self-level button, and have a perfectly horizontal plane in under a minute. For a crew that's moving from room to room, or from one building to another, that speed translates directly into saved labor hours. I've spoken with several foremen who told me that the time saved during setup is the single biggest productivity boost they see with self-leveling lasers. Now, let's talk about the real-world environment you'll be putting this thing in. Imagine you're laying a concrete slab for a small commercial building. You need a level reference that can reach across the whole site, stay stable while you run your screed, and hold its accuracy even when the ground is a little uneven. The Rugby 620's rotary head spins at a speed that keeps the beam steady, and its built-in self-leveling mechanism compensates for a few degrees of tilt, so you don't have to manually adjust the tripod every time you move it. That's a practical strength you'll feel the moment you're trying to get a reference line across a 150-foot span and the beam stays rock solid. On the flip side, the Rugby 620 is a single-axis laser. That means it only gives you a horizontal plane. If you need a true 3D reference, say you're setting up a slope for a drainage pipe or you're working on a sloped roof, you'll have to add a separate device or use a manual slope feature, which is present but limited. You can manually set a slope angle, but you won't get the same automatic precision you'd have with a dual-axis system. For contractors who regularly need both level and grade references, that limitation can become a hidden trade-off. Battery life is another practical consideration. The Rugby 620 runs on a rechargeable lithium-ion pack that's rated for about 8 hours of continuous operation under normal conditions. In my conversations with site managers, that's usually enough to get through a full day's work, especially because you're not constantly running the laser once it's set. You often leave it idle while the crew does their thing. However, if you're working in extreme cold or you're running the laser nonstop for a marathon job, you'll want to have a spare battery on hand. That extra battery adds cost, but it's a small price compared to the downtime you'd face if the laser dies midday. Durability is something like his name carries. The Rugby 620's housing is IP65 rated, meaning it can handle dust, splashes, and even a brief downpour without losing calibration. I've heard from a few users who accidentally left it out in a light rain, and the laser kept working right after they wiped it down. That kind of ruggedness is essential when you're moving the unit from the office to the job site, loading it onto a truck, and exposing it to the usual construction mess. Weight is a middle ground point. At around 7 pounds, the Rugby 620 isn't the lightest handheld laser, but it's also not a brick. If you're the type who hauls tools up a ladder every day, you'll notice the weight when you're climbing, but most crews will have a tripod that stays in place for a while, so you only need to move it occasionally. That makes the weight a manageable compromise for the level of accuracy and self-leveling convenience you get. Who should actually buy this? If you're a general contractor, a concrete contractor, or a site supervisor who needs a reliable horizontal reference on medium to large jobs, the Rugby 620 fits like a glove. Its self-leveling speed cuts setup time. Its beam range covers most indoor and outdoor sites, and the Leica brand gives you confidence that the calibration will hold over months of use. It's also a good fit for electrical or HVAC installers who need a quick level line for conduit or duct runs across a big space. Who should skip it? If you're a DIY homeowner, a weekend renovator, or a small-scale handyman who only needs a level line once a month, the price tag will likely feel too steep. You'd probably be better off with a lower-cost line laser that requires manual leveling. Likewise, if your projects constantly demand both level and slope references, think landscaping grading, road construction, or complex roof work, a dual-axis laser, or a dedicated slope